Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds, and welcome to my book garden. I'm Rosebud Reads, and this is our third live stream of Peach Blossom Debt, and I am super excited about that. Regarding Peach Blossom Debt, I'm not sponsored. Oh no, we're starting off strong. It says my connection is unstable. One moment. We will be right back. Okay. Hello again. Good start. We are already reconnected and it's been 1 minute. So I really hope this is not going to be kind of the trend for this stream today, because I'm actually really excited about the stream today. Because we are starting as a new character, kind of, since our boy's temporary body died, and they accidentally waited too long, and there was some other shenanigans up in the heavenly realm that prevented them from going back and using Lisa Ming's body. So now he is a monk called Guang Yunzi. Guang Yunzi. And that is kind of where we ended, with him waking up at the break of dawn. When the sun was warm, this immortal lord opened my eyes on a bed built out of wooden planks to a drab plain room with a crooked, half-rotting door and window. Just then, someone rapped loudly at the rotting door. Guang Yunzi, Guang Yunzi. The 35th day ritual assembly for the third young master of the prince's manor is about to start. If you don't go now, you won't be able to make it in time. Oh, so this short-lived Taoist priest was called Guang Yunzi. One character of his name was even similar to this immortal lord's title, Tianshu Yuanju. Okay, so that's where we ended it last time. So he's literally about to go to the ritual assembly for his own dead body, which kind of trippy, not gonna lie. I think it'll be very interesting. Also, if anyone has had anything interesting happen this week or weekend prior, feel free to share in the chat, but I'm kind of just going to go ahead and get started, because why not? Okay. Oh yeah, today we are reading chapters 9 through 11. So we're doing 3 today. Chapter 9. Guang Yunzi did not seem to be even 50 years old, more likely in his 40s. The instant I opened my eyes, I first caught a whiff of something rancid, so much so that I felt dizzy. This man had not washed up in a very long time. I reached out to feel myself. There was a fairly long beard under my chin, which felt sticky to the touch. Ew. I picked it up for a look, just in time to see a bug scurrying through the dense gaps as if foraging for food. Double ew. Could not bring myself to continue. Hengwen tossed me a word from where he was in midair. What a stinky, unkept Taoist priest. Don't expect me to stick around you. I'll come again when you've cleaned yourself up. Having said that, he vanished. Yeah, I don't blame him. If a bug crawled out of my hair or my beard, if I had one, I'd nope right out of there too. Seriously, is this Taoist priest more unkempt than Lisa Ming's corpse? You sang such pretty words while we were at the coffin, but look at you now. There was nowhere on me that was not itchy. I reached behind my neck to scratch it, rubbing out a considerably sized gray lump of dirt. I flicked it away, rubbed again, then flicked again. Quite interesting. The top of my head was itching terribly, and I could vaguely feel something running around. I heard there was a kind of bug called flea, and in all probability, that was the culprit. The banging on the door persisted. I scratched my scalp and opened the door, even as one of my hands was rubbing around a ball of dirt. The person outside was also a Taoist priest. He had a slightly oval face and looked rather stocky and good-natured. "You're finally awake," he said at the top of his voice. "I thought you had gotten immortalized in there." Wasn't that exactly the case? First, he breathed his last, and then this great lord came to immortalize him. "Right," I said. "I toured thousands of mountains inhabited by immortals, then it suddenly turned into a dream. I've practically forgotten all affairs of the secular world. I don't even remember you." "Then you have to remember it, immortal Guangyun," the Taoist priest said. "This humble Taoist is Chang Shan, the errand runner of Mingge Temple. Don't forget to look out for me when you become an immortal." He chuckled merrily as he rubbed his hands. "You told this humble Taoist to remind you this morning not to oversleep, so I came to call you earlier. This day is like none other. It's the princely manners ritual ceremony. We're severely lacking in people in the temple. Hasn't been easy to get the nod from the master and let you fill in and make up the numbers. The least you could do is wash up and change into something more decent." My eyes lit up at the words wash up. "Where's the water?" "Amazing," Chang Shan quipped as he led me to the backyard. "You usually say you won't bathe for fear of getting ill from excessive water. To think you'd actually come to your senses today." Did you maybe get a cold once from being in water too long and just freak out? Or is it kind of the same situation as with Lisa Ming, where it was kind of just a shell? I don't think so. There was a wooden shed in the backyard with a well in the shed, a bucket, and a large wooden basin beside it. I bolted the door to the shed, filled the basin full of water, and craned my neck out for a look. A shaggy head came into view. This immortal lord remained by the side of the well, drawing several basins of water and using more than a caddy of soap before my hair and beard smoothed out and my skin was scrubbed of grime to reveal a normal complexion. Chang Shan prepared a set of brand new clothes for me to change into. After my hair was secured and my beard neatly combed, I felt light all over. It was only then that Hengwen drifted over. Taking advantage of the absence of possible onlookers, I dusted my brand new Taoist robe and asked, "Have I the aura of immortal Lu of the Eight Immortals?" "If I play along and say yes, Lu Dongbin will no doubt destroy my Wei Yuan palace," Hengwen said. I let out a weary laugh. Don't I look a lot more handsome than I did this morning? After a moment of silence, Hengwen answered with sincerity, "You look human now." I mean, that's a start, let's be honest. I followed the Taoist priest from Mingge Temple and arrived at the Prince of the Eastern Commander's manor. Striding across the threshold, I was overwhelmed with emotions. Just a few days ago, I was family to the people across this threshold. Although Li Siming was not as suave as this immortal lord, he was, at the very least, a handsome and youthful young master. But now he was rotting in his coffin, and in exchange, this immortal lord got a middle-aged Taoist priest with a complexion that resembled a wind-dried persimmon skin. Did Mingwei and the Jade Emperor expect me to seduce Tianshu with this face? I think they were just kind of scrabbling at the edges, honestly. The ritual ceremony for the 35th day of Li Siming's death was ostentatiously done up, with a total of 8 Taoist temples and 66 Taoist priests reciting the scriptures. It was among the crowd that I shook a bell. I saw the prince of the Eastern Commandery, as well as Li Siyuan and Li Sixian. This immortal lord understood they had a deep bond with Li Siming, but no matter how deep the feelings ran or how many tears had been shed, the tears would have all dried up by the time they cried to the 35th day after his death. So when they were burning paper offerings before his spirit tablet, everyone was wailing with dry eyes. Only one statement uttered by the prince roused this immortal lord's spirit. Before the spirit tablet, the prince of the Eastern Commandery stuffed an offering of paper money into the fire basin and declared, Mingge, rest assured, knowing that father will definitely gouge out that Shengling's heart and sacrifice it to you. Well, that's something, right? As we collected the payment for our services, Chang Shen whispered into my ears, from what his lordship said today, our Eastern Commandery will surely clash with the Southern Commandery. Alas, what a sin. To put it bluntly, it could be said the little master's death was fated, and that he was asking for it. Once war breaks out, the commoners will suffer. Lowering his voice even further, he whispered, do you know how the little young master died? No one in the world knew better than I. Chang Shan continued, I heard that little young master was originally a dimwit, but for some reason, one day he suddenly became lucid. And when he did, goodness me, he immediately kept a young lover of unknown origins in his courtyard. I heard he pampered this gentleman a lot. But not 2 days later, his lordship invited another young master to the residence as his advisor. They said that the advisor was quite the extraordinary character, like an immortal. When the little young master saw him, he immediately discarded the younger lover in his courtyard and gave all his heart to the advisor. The one in the courtyard, stewing in jealousy, then hooked up with his old flame, and after stabbing the little young master, the pair jumped over the wall and fled. Interesting, don't you think? My beard twitched a teensy bit. Interesting. Chang Shan added, and even better yet, that old flame of the young lover actually turned out to be the great general of the Southern Commandery, Shangling. After the little young master died, the advisor vanished too. This whole farce is straight out of a play, only this turned out to be a tragedy. He lost his life, and now the commoners have to suffer for it. Despondent, I said nothing. Jade Emperor, Mingge, this is all on you. I covered the 2 strings of copper coins under my sleeve and followed the crowd out of the residence. From afar, I saw Jining and Jingshu wearing mourning sashes, weaving their way in and out of the crowd. Jining eyed the offering platform, as if having design on that plate of pastries placed up as an offering. I had inquired Mingge, after the fates of these 2 children. Mingo. The Prince of the Eastern Commandery would die of a stroke 5 years later. 3 years after that, Li Siyuan would meet with a sudden death, and another year later, Li Xian would meet his end on the battlefield. Jingning would become a commander-in-chief in his youth and emerge victorious battle after battle. However, the one who would take the helm of the Eastern Commandery actually turned out to be Jingshu. This timid Jingshu, who tagged along behind Jingning all day, would go on to become the founding sovereign of a new dynasty. The world truly was ever-changing and volatile. I'd been standing before the funeral awning for a long time. Jing Ning's swiveling eyes stopped on me, and he waddled over. Hey, old Taoist priest with the long beard. What are you looking at? As usual, Jin Shu followed behind him. Jin Ning would be quite the philanthropist in the future. This mortal lord looked at him, imagining him relishing in the embrace of dozens of beautiful concubines. What a worrisome child. I took out 2 little jade gourd pendants from my sleeve and bent over. This humble Taoist sees that both little young masters have auspicious faces that bode good fortune, so I'm giving you this pair of jade charms to both of you, so you may establish an affinity with the Tao. Jin Ning reached out to take them, but Jin Shu tugged on his sleeve and looked up at me. You're a Taoist priest of unknown origin. Is there something you want in exchange for giving us things? I laughed. Since this humble Taoist is able to come here to partake in the ritual ceremony, my origins are naturally verified. How else is a common person able to enter the Prince of the Eastern Commandery's manor? These 2 pieces of jade are merely to establish an affinity with the Tao. There are no other motives. If the little young master really wants to reward this humble Taoist with a small something... I stroked my beard and looked at Jin Ning's hand. Then you may give this bamboo tube to me. How about it? Jin Ning looked at the bamboo tube in his hand as if he was loath to part with it. Then he looked back at the jade gourds in my hand and hesitated. Jin Shu blinked, looked at Jing Ning, and then said to me, Then I'll give you this, but can you give us the gourds and not take the bamboo tube? He felt in his belt with his little hand, then held out a fist before me and spread his palm. I looked at that piece of jade, delighted. What a stroke of luck, having it all delivered into my hands without needing to expend further effort. Thank you, little young master. I picked up a pendant and handed it to Jing Shu. Jin Ning yelled, Hey, we agreed on 2, so why only 1? I shook my head. This little young master's gift is only enough to exchange for 1. 1 thing for another of similar value. Isn't that only fair? You said earlier that it was free, Jin Ning retorted. I stroked my beard again, and I did, but I've changed my mind now. Jin Ning scrunched his nose and glared at me. Jing Shu stuffed the pendant into Jin Ning's hand. Forget it. Don't waste your breath with him. I don't care about this anyway. Here, take it. Jin Ning shook his head hard and held the bamboo tube out to me. Here you go. Give me that. This immortal lord beamed. Thank you, little young master. May heaven's blessings be with you. I took the bamboo tube and handed Jin Ning the other pendant. You like that bamboo tube, so why did you give it to him? I don't want this pendant, Jing Shu said. Jin Ning stuffed the pendant into his hand. You exchanged your item to give me, and I exchanged mine to give you. The 2 things we gave him were both taken from little uncle's room without permission, anyway. If our dads recognize them, we'll have to take a beating from the broom. Only then did Jin Shu take the gourd and tuck it into his sleeve. This immortal lord left with the 2 items, triumphant. On returning to the Taoist temple, I gave Cheng Shan a string of coins and thanked him for taking care of me. A big smile bloomed on Cheng Shan's face. Fellow Taoist Guang Yuan is truly too courteous. If you visit Shang Chuan again in the future, you must come seek me out at the temple. That night, I admired the bamboo tube and jade pendant, feeling smug. Standing before the bed, Hengwen remarked, "Do you have peace of mind now that you have coaxed and swindled both items out of the children? So how about it? Do you think of him when you look at them? How could this immortal lord do something as shady as swindling children? Those two jade gourds were treasures on which I cast a protective spell. It would ensure that no evil or demon could get to them, and keep them safe and sound at that." I smiled obsequiously at Hengwen. "Do you want to lie down on the bed?" "Forget it," Hengwen said. "That bed of yours is no cleaner than the shroud Lisa Ming was buried in." The next day, I took my leave from Mingyue Temple and left Shangchuan City. Guang Yunzi was of mortal flesh, so this immortal lord could not ride the clouds. I could only walk the entire way to Shoujia ferry crossing, which was 4 or 5 days on foot. After I was a long way from Shangchuan City, Hengwen materialized and accompanied me on foot. Although he manifested himself, he still wore Master Shao's looks, unwilling as he was to accommodate me in the form of a Taoist priest himself. The entire way we went, passerbys all cast sidelong glances at us, finding the duo combination to be quite strange. Sorry about that. 5 days later, I stood in the evening before a riverfront inn. Dark clouds hung overhead, making it extremely dim. The high waves of the Yangtze River slapped against the riverbanks, while the inn's banner, meant to beckon customers, flapped in the wind. With a bamboo pole in my right hand, bearing the words "Ironclad Fortune-Telling" on a black banner, and a thin horsetail whip swinging from my left, I strode into the inn. The waiter initially cast a sidelong glance at me and could hardly be bothered as he made to turn away, but then he saw Hengwen entering and his face turned positively radiant. When they realized that Hengwen and I were fellow companions, and when I fished out the silver, the smile on the waiters' and innkeepers' faces widened even more. They very solicitously arranged for 2 deluxe rooms upstairs, and just as solicitously prepared the best seat in the hall downstairs, where they served their best wine and dishes. After the dishes were served, a waiter came to pour the wine with infinite hospitality and started a conversation with me. "Dao Sheng, you have the divine demeanor of an immortal. I can tell at a glance that you are a great master." Not at all, I answered modestly. "My cultivation is meager, and my knowledge in the arts is superficial. I can merely read faces to predict one's fortune and future prospects." The waiter's eyes shone with admiration. So I continued, "This humble Taoist also has a smattering knowledge in reading feng shui, observing astronomical phenomena, and the divination art of Chimen Dunjia. The admiration in the waiter's eyes brimmed even more. So I continued further. "Actually, this humble one can also take a look to see if there are any occurrences of demon possession, supernatural hauntings, and even dubious, tricky illnesses that cannot be cured." The waiter's face lit up with pleasant surprise. He promptly set down the wine jar and bowed. "Dao Sheng, you're a blessing straight from heaven. We do have a patient with a tricky illness in our humble inn. Could I trouble you to grant us some compassion and take a look at him?" The innkeeper personally led Hengwen and me up the stairs. Several more waiters scurried about, doing their utmost to serve. According to the innkeeper, an esteemed master had come to the inn with an entourage. They had initially intended to cross the river, but the waves on the river were too strong, which made it impossible for them to pass. So they had stayed in the inn. A Gentleman from the group was down with sickness. Several days later, the master seemed to have some urgent matter to attend to and left with half of the party, leaving the other half to take care of the sick man. But the sick man simply would not get better, and the remaining people trickled out for their own important matters. Eventually, only the invalid remained. Before the last one left, he left us huge sum of money and said that they would be back in a few days. He instructed us to take care of the sick gentleman. He even went as far as drawing his sword to hack off a corner of the table to intimidate us, saying that this was what would happen to us if we did not take good care of him. The innkeeper's tone was greatly distressed. But that gentleman's health deteriorated by the day. We looked for every physician we could find to see him, and they all said that he couldn't be cured. All he does now is lie on the bed and cough out mouthful after mouthful of blood. He's only barely hanging in there by a thread. I beseech you to think of every way possible to save his life. How are we going to explain it if he dies and that group of people return? Yeah, that would kind of be one of those, like, dude, we're doing our best, but, like, guy's dying. Like, help? Help, please? The innkeeper pushed the door open to reveal the bedridden invalid breathing his last. The oil lamp was not very bright, but it was enough for me to see the supposedly dying man on the bed. Having gotten a clear look, I immediately said to the innkeeper, "Don't worry. No matter what happens, he won't die." It's our boy. Well, not our boy, but we know who it is. The innkeeper grabbed me, a drowning man clutching at straws, his hands trembling as he said, "Zhao Heng, you're truly a living immortal who understands the secrets of the universe with a glance. With your word that he won't die, I can rest assured, knowing that my head will stay intact." I took one step at a time into the room and walked over to the bed. The man on the bed suddenly opened his eyes, a pair of black orbs that appeared abnormally bright under the light. He stared at this immortal lord, opened his mouth, very clearly saying, "Lisa Ming, are you here to make me pay for your life?" The immortal lord got a huge fright and took a big step back. "Oh, dear me, Jade Emperor. Don't tell me Tianshu has suddenly attained enlightenment. To think he could recognize me at a glance." Dao Sheng, don't be surprised, the innkeeper said. This gentleman is severely ill, and in his delirium has been dropping this phrase on everyone he sees. When the master was still around, he would step out of their room and head downstairs to smash the tables. Too many of our tables have already been destroyed by him. Yeah, it gotta suck when after you, like, save your boo, all he keeps talking about is the dude that kept him captive as his boy toy. So technically, our guy's doing his best and still breaking him apart a little bit with frustration. The innkeeper heaved a long, weary sigh. I calmed myself. So he was delirious with fever. If that was the case, was Tianshu still feeling guilty over stabbing this immortal lord? Well, I mean, sounds like it, yes. I walked over and sat at the man's bedside. Mu Ruoyan's bright, shiny eyes were still fixed on me. I smiled affably back and picked up one of his hands to put on a show of reading his pulse. The few grams of flesh I had so painstakingly nursed back onto Tianshu's body had all burned off. At that time, he had been all skin and bones, and now even that layer of skin covering the bones on his wrist was so thin it looked like there was practically nothing. I set 2 fingers on his bone and partially closed my eyes, putting on the look of a master. Hengwen stood beside the table with the small lit oil lamp and coughed once, a move that complemented the innkeeper's sigh. Dao Shang is a great master, as expected. Dao Shang, not Shang, Shang, Dao Shang. Even the way you feel the pulse differs from the others, he marveled. This is my own unique way of taking pulses, I said leisurely. In fact, I'm even better at reading pulses with silk thread. I retracted my hand. On the bed, Mu Ruoyan coughed 4 or 5 times. A few drops of blood splattered from his mouth. Having very tragically cultivated a habit from all my time attending to him in the palace of the Eastern Commander, in the Prince of the Eastern Commandery's manor, I reached out and wiped off the blood for him with my sleeve. With eyes both shut, Mu Ruoyan spoke, his words breaking up. Lisa Ming, what kind of ghost do you think I'll turn into this time? A benefactor, I spoke up. This humble one's Taoist name is Guang Yun Zi. Don't worry. With me here, I'll surely cure you of your illness and restore you back to health. Mu Ruoyan's emaciated fingers grasped my sleeve. He made a pained sound in his throat. I harmed you, cost you your life, yet you want to preserve my life and make me suffer. Forget it. This is the retribution I deserve. Oh, it looks like my words aren't falling on deaf ears. Hengwen yawned. Taoist master, take your time on the diagnosis and treatment. This humble one is going to go to bed first. Having said that, he turned and left. I shifted, pulling my sleeve from Tianshu's grip, and stood from the edge of the bed. How is it? The innkeeper asked, impatient. I stroked my beard and shook my head. Not too good. This gentleman is afflicted with a chronic illness on top of his emotional distress. Shall have to return to my room first and meditate on it, so the prescription can only be ready tomorrow morning. May I ask if your esteemed inn has bird nests available? You can decoct a bowl for him to take first. That master did bring along several kilograms of bird nests when he came, the innkeeper said. There are still some left. The quick-witted waiters immediately left to decoct it. The innkeeper respectfully saw this immortal lord to the guest room, where he ordered a brand new wooden bathtub to be carried out and for bathing water to be prepared. He even gave us 2 complimentary plates of dried fruits as a late-night snack. Before I stepped out of Mu Ruoyan's room, I cast a look back at him. The pallid figure laying in the dim light of the oil lamp looked not unlike a paper doll. I stepped out the door, and he did not say a word more. The guest room next to mine must have been Hengwen's, and the door was closed. I took a look and told the innkeeper to send the brand new wooden bathtub and bathing water to the gentleman in the other room, as well as to change the bedding and pillows in his room. This gentleman was a distinguished personage, and everything he used must be the newest and the cleanest. At any rate, he could afford to pay for it. The innkeeper, naturally, acknowledged my instructions in the affirmative. When I was done washing up, I blew out the oil lamp and lay down on the bed, holding the copper 8 trigrams tally in my palms as I extracted my true form. At each stop of our journey here, we would always book 2 guest rooms, one for Guang Yunzi and one for Hengwen and me. Since he did not come to lift me out, I could only go looking for him. The lights in Hengwen's rooms had been extinguished too. I felt for the bed in the darkness. The person on the bed turned over and asked, "Done with the consultation?" I let out a weary laugh. Yeah. Then I rubbed my hands. Move over inside and make room for me. Hengwen scoffed and shifted a little. Took advantage of the space to lie down and pull a corner of the quilt over myself. Tianshu is severely ill, Hengwen remarked. Seems to me like he's hanging on to life by a mere thread. I doubt mortal methods could cure his illness, and the Jade Emperor doesn't allow us to heal him with our divine powers. I wonder what miraculous remedies Guang Yunzi Dao Shang has to treat him with. I'll deal with it as needed. If all else fails, then just leave him hanging, I said. Hengwen chuckled. Could you bear to do so? It took just a few words from Tianshu, and you're already forgiving and had already forgotten that one stab, right? You say to leave him hanging, but you already have a plan in mind, don't you? Did not dare to respond to that. Hengwen's appraisal of me was correct. I did indeed have a plan. Outside the window, the wind stirred indistinctly. I was very familiar with this movement. It had followed us this entire journey. Is this what you're planning? Hengwen asked, voice hushed. There was the sound of the wind, a slight rustling, then all was silent. 2 hours later, I softly opened the door, and sure enough, there was a bundle of neatly secured lingxi lying by the threshold. The species was also called Jinluo lingxi. Although it was an extremely valuable divine herb, it grew in the mortal world. I had only seen it a couple times back in the heavenly court. The bouquet of lingxi was meant for Hengwen, and its sender was that dauntless homosexual romantic of a fox who had been yearning for him. So they can't use divine means, but our fox can. That said, this fox had been furtively following us the moment Hengwen and I left Shangchuan City. Furball was quite the resourceful one. Could always sneak into the inn where Hengwen and I stayed in the middle of the night, where he could linger and fix his gaze outside the room before putting down a handful of Jingluo Lingxi. Jingluo Lingxi could purge impure vital energy and nourish the primordial spirit. The fox was probably worried that Hengwen, being dragged through this corrupted world of the mortals, would be tainted with the ills of the secular world, and so he gave him these. It's really nice of him. This immortal lord was a compassionate one. Alas, the world abounded with lovesick romantics. I would treat this matter as one as ethereal as floating clouds. After Hengwen took the lingxi, he always would keep them away in his sleeve with a smile, feigning ignorance to his sender. And so, to this date, the fox still thought that he had concealed himself well. This went on day after day. Holding the lingxi, I returned to the bed and flashed Hengwen an obsequious smile. Would you mind sharing a piece or two of this with me? I knew it. You were thinking of using it to save Tianshu, Hengwen said lazily. Take it if you want, but let me just remind you again that you descended to the mortal realm to set up trials, not to save him from hardships and suffering. It looks like you are veering away from the script, from breaking up the lovebirds to falling for the beauty. Rein yourself in and remember not to go too far. I think he's a little jealous. Also, I'm going to fix this a little bit. There's a lot of my head. Okay, that feels better. A moment. I tucked the lingxi in my clothes and laid back on the bed. Although Tianshu Xingjun and I would clash over the fact, or clash after the fact. He still saved me once, after all. I have to repay him for this debt of gratitude somehow. I, Song Yao Yuanju, was the most averse to owing other one's debts of gratitude, especially Tianshu, with whom I would eventually fail to see eye to eye. Many years ago, when I had just been promoted to the title of Guangshu Yuanjun, there had been a day when Hengwen left for the Eastern Paradise, the Buddha realm, for a doctrine dialogue. Feeling lonely in the heavenly court, I went to Baihua Lingjun's palace. To relieve my boredom, I had tea and a look at the celestial beasts he was raising. It just so happened that there was a one-horned dragon that strayed while cultivating to be an immortal and had gone berserk. With sword in hand, this immortal lord fought the dragon. But unfortunately, that beast spewed smoke into my face and with a sweep of its tail sent me flying several meters away. I was utterly disgraced and heavily injured. Coincidentally, Tianshu Xingjun was also at Lingjun's residence. Although he was usually indifferent to those around him, he treated my injuries. I owed him a debt of gratitude ever since. Several hundred years later, when we ended up confronting each other at Lingxiao Palace, I still thought of that moment as an unreal dream. The same Tianshu Xingjun who had once saved me, the Tianshu Xingjun who was cold and aloof, now actually wanted to plant a trumped-up charge against me and have me exiled to the mortal world, never to return to the heavenly court. When Tianshu pressed his charge against you back then, he had some evidence to back it up. So it can't be said that he wrongly accused you, Hengwen said. But I can't figure out why he would do so. Tianshu would never do such a thing, given his character, yet he did. There has to be a reason. That is weird. I can't be bothered to know the reason, I said. In any case, I've repaid my debt and done what the Jade Emperor has instructed me to do. He failed to frame me back then, so I'll treat it as if it never happened. When he returns to the heavenly court, we will still be fellow immortals who smile when we see each other. I, Song Yao Yuanju, am a magnanimous immortal. Yeah, I kind of wonder why. I have a feeling we'll find out eventually, but probably near the very end. The next day, I woke up early in the morning and prepared to inform the innkeeper to decoct a bowl of lingxi for Mu Ruoyan. When I headed downstairs with Hengwen, however, I saw a bunch of waiters rubbing their hands together as they gathered around a cage. One of the waiters greeted us jubilantly. We caught a rare beast last night. Do the two of you want to come over for a look? I readily agreed and leaned over. It turned out to be an old friend in the cage. A silvery white furball crouched in the cage, all huddled up with its head drooping, looking forlorn like a hero at a dead end. Xiang Yu, the conqueror at Wu Jiang River. Fox? How did you get caught? Hengwen, too, was taken aback. The fox peered up at him, its eyes glistening as though filled with tears, and lowered its head to crouch in the corner of its cage. The waiters were all very excited. The stray cats and weasels have been making a lot of commotion of late, so we set up a live trap under the eaves, hoping to catch those animals. But we didn't expect to catch this beast. Dao Sheng, you are experienced and knowledgeable. This fox's coat color is rare and extremely valuable, right? I wonder if we would be able to sell it for 10 taels of silver if we skin it alive. This immortal lord held up a palm and recited a Taoist mantra before saying, What a sin, what a sin! It may be a beast, but skinning it alive is too brutal. Heaven decreed that it is to meet its end here. On account of this humble Taoist, at least give it a quick end before skinning it. The fox jerked its head up and glared sharply at me. Then it looked miserably at Hengwen and lowered its head again. I saw what appeared to be bloodstains on its right front paw. It seemed to be a recent injury, and not at all minor. I mean, dude helped you out with the flowers. I mean, unintentionally. Like, you're not cutting him any slack. That's kind of rude. You were just talking about debts. As expected, Hengwen declared, "This humble one shall offer 10 taels of gold. Sell it to me." He set the gold ingots on the table, and the waiters broke out into radiant smiles, looking very much like a cluster of brilliant sunflowers. One of them said, in an attentive tone, "We will immediately skin this fox for you." "It looks very rare," Hengwen said, "so I'll keep it alive for now." "Benefactor, aren't you afraid of the fox's odor?" I asked. The fox glared hatefully at me again. Hengwen opened the cage and carried the fox out in his arms. "I don't smell a thing. Let's keep it." The fox thrust its head deep into Hengwen's bosom and nuzzled against him. Back in my room upstairs, I closed the door. The fox lay in Hengwen's lap and huddled into a ball, looking very cozy. I leaned against the table. "Furball, you look like a stud, well-defined chest and all, the last time this immortal lord saw you. You could be said to be a man, but look at you now, so frail and delicate." The fox immediately jumped off Hengwen's lap and rolled into human form. In a display of his dignity and honor, he coldly said, "This humble one is Xian Li, and it seems like you know that." He twitched his ears and did not look at me. Instead, he gazed at Hengwen like a man besotted. "Thank you, Qingjun, for saving my life." "You're seriously injured. Jingluo Lingxi is a divine object that you cannot take, and if you do, you have to show your real form." "Why take this risk?" Hengwen said gently. Of course, Hengwen had always been a good-tempered person who was gentle with everyone and everything. "For Qingjun, it's worth it, even if I lose my life," the fox said. "I am willing." Oh, so mushy. Hengwen stretched out a hand, offering him an elixir pill. "Take this elixir first. It might benefit you." Fox palmed it in his paw and gazed at Hengwen in a manner I found very nerve-wracking. It was quite a while before he delivered the pill to his mouth and swallowed it. It was inevitable that this immortal lord gave a pointed cough. "The wound on your arm looks extremely odd. How did you get it?" The fox initially treated me as though I was invisible, but Hengwen was looking at him too. So he answered in a muted tone. "I was wounded by a mortal." That greatly surprised me. Furball had at least 1,000 years of cultivation. Which mortal is tough and fearsome enough to injure it? Hengwen had the same question. "What is this person's origin? I'm surprised he was able to injure you." "I don't know his origin," the fox answered insipidly. "He actually came to my cave to steal the Lingxi, so I struck out at him to teach him a lesson, but in a moment of carelessness, I ended up slightly injured. I locked him up in my cave. It seems like his surname is Shan." "So, Nanming Daijun was not a heartless cad who had discarded his lover after all, but had been caught by the fox while stealing medicine for Tianshu. Oh, this immortal lord was somewhat touched by Nanming's love for Tianshu. Been aggravatingly ruthless when he was breaking up lovebirds, and now that he was love-struck, he was even more aggravating. Oh my gosh, how could I not say aggravating? It's been a long day, friends. Love. Oh, such is love. But come to think of it, how had he known to steal the divine Ling Shi planted by a demon to treat Tianshu? Who had pointed him in that direction? What did you do to the Ling Shi thief after catching him? I asked the fox. Locked him up, the fox answered. Just locked him up, I wondered. He stole your Ling Shi and injured your arm. Did you torture him or break his limbs for fun? The fox cast a glance at me and answered in a cold voice. No. I've never been one to split hairs with mortals. I only broke one of his arms and tied him up in my cave. He retrained his gaze on Hengwen. I've never hurt a mortal. The fox was laying out his lofty character for all to see. He gazed at Hengwen, his eyes sincere, while the tips of his ears trembled ever so slightly. Hengwen smiled at him, earning an instant beam of delight. The fox looked very much like he had the intent to revert to his original form and jump back into Hengwen's lap. As chance would have it, there came the sound of footsteps outside the door. The fox immediately reverted to its original form and bounded onto Hengwen's lap. This mortal lord caught it by the scruff of its neck and lifted it up. Furball twisted its body around and bared its coldly glistening fangs. The waiter knocked on the door. Gentlemen, your breakfast is ready. Please make your way downstairs for your meal. I tucked the fox under my armpit and held it there. With my free hand, I opened the door and uttered a Taoist mantra. We'll be right down. Thank you. I closed the door again. The fox leaped to the ground and rolled into human form. Hengwen and I got ready to head downstairs where our meals were awaiting. Before we left, this immortal lord even asked the fox out of the kindness of my heart, Do you want me to bring back a steamed bun for you? The fox answered defiantly, Nope. As we returned after breakfast, I crossed my fingers that the fox had already returned to its lair. But the moment I opened the door, I saw a white furball huddled up contentedly on Hengwen's quilt, taking a little nap. The fox would not return to its lair. It argued with conviction and logic. Hengwen Qingjun had bought it in full view of the public. If it were to vanish all of a sudden, it would surely rouse suspicions. So in order to spare Hengwen Qingjun further trouble, it decided to stay for the time being. For the time being. I see your game, fox. Perhaps moved by Furball's devoted love, and also probably because it found it an interesting situation, Hengwen tacitly allowed it to stay. The fox was ecstatic, but this immortal lord was a little worried. I had also fallen into unrequited love in the past, and I knew this sort of thing would be even harder to extricate from the more it dragged on. Tianshu and Nanming were a poignant example, right in front of us. Well, Hengwen was different. He had a shortcoming, and that was that he enjoyed trying things out for the novelty and fun of it. If he were to get a taste of love with the fox on a whim, I shuddered. Moreover, Tianshu was still in his room, barely hanging in there with half a breath, so he waited to consume the Lingxi. Jinluo Lingxi was a gift from the fox to Hengwen. With the fox staying here, how could this immortal lord swallow my pride and ask Hengwen for it? There was no use in sitting here and worrying about Hengwen and the fox, so I went to check up on Tianshu. Oh my god. This guy, I love where his lines and standards lie. He's like, well, damn it, now this fox is here, so I can't ask for the thing that the fox technically granted to my friend, because now the fox is here and he'd know. Fine. That's where his line is. Two waiters were meticulously cleaning up Tianshu's room. They said since last night, Tianshu had coughed out several more mouthfuls of blood. The innkeeper also made his way into the room and looked at me expectantly. Zhao Heng, you said last night that you definitely have a prescription today. Do you have the medicine? This immortal lord coughed. I do, but... Two knocks on the door, and a waiter entered the room, a bowl of dark green soup in his hands. Zhao Heng, a humble servant, has arrived with the medicine. I was astonished. Hengwen strode into the room. I noted the time and had it decocted beforehand. Let him drink it, and we'll see if it works. Also, that was nice of Hengwen not to make him ask and hurt his pride. Two waiters eased Mu Ruoyan up and pried his teeth open. This immortal lord fed him the medicine, one spoonful at a time. Mu Ruoyan took to the Jinluo Lingxi well, and the medicine went down smoothly. After being settled back on the pillow, he remained still. The innkeeper hemmed and hawed. Zhao Heng, this gentleman. Mu Ruoyan's breathing was even and shallow, and the distressed expression on his face receded some too. Only when he was sleeping soundly could he look like this. Knowing this, I said, he's fine. Let this benefactor rest quietly for now. Hopefully his illness will take a turn for the better when he wakes. Mu Ruoyan slept for an entire day and night. The innkeeper and waiters worried that this immortal lord had actually poisoned him to death, so they would go in and out of the room to check on his breathing. The waiters lay in wait by the front and back doors, beneath the windows, and before the staircase on the ground floor, fearing that I would flee when I saw my chance. So I simply moved a chair to sit by the table in Mu Ruoyan's room, when I was not sleeping, saving the innkeeper and waiters from having their hearts in their mouths all the time, played chess with myself to relieve my boredom. When night fell, I returned to my room, extracted my real form, and went to look for Hengwen. The fox was in his original form, sleeping on a pillow on a chair. Picked it up and pointed next door. The body this immortal lord uses in the daytime is lying on the bed in that room. You can move him to the floor and have the bed to yourself. The fox hugged the pillow tightly with his paws. Why won't you let me sleep in the same room as Qingjun? This mortal lord did not mince words. You have feelings for Hengwen Qingjun. This mortal lord is afraid something might happen if you are in the same room as him. I mean, probably. The fox transformed into a human and said with a cold smile, Song Yao Yuanju has a filthy mind. I admire Qingjun, but I would never force him if he was unwilling. Yeah, I thought. But that's not what I'm worried about to begin with. This Hengwen Qingjun is not so easily coerced. Even I myself have no hope of success if I so wished, much less you with your little bit of cultivation. You might get farther than you think, buddy. On the bed, Hengwen did not even stir, not even the slightest. Presumably, he was having a blast listening to the commotion here. So I steadied my tone and reasoned it out with the fox. Qingjun and I descended to the mortal world with a mission, and there are fellow mortals up in heaven watching our every move. The rules of the heavenly court are strict. I fear it will incur suspicion if the conversations and actions between you two are too intimate. The fox sat on the chair with his arms folded before his chest, his eyes flashing with faint green light. Forgive this humble one for disagreeing with Song Yuanjun's reasoning. Song Yuanjun sleeps on the same bed with Qingjun every night, and I heard that you often mooch food and wine from Qingjun's residence back in the heavenly court. It seems like you have never been punished by the laws of heaven. So if you ask me, the rules of the heavenly court are not as strict and rigorous as the rumors make them out to be. Called out. This mongrel actually went as far as to make inquiries about this immortal lord in Hengwen. And where in the world did he hear of untrue gossip saying that this immortal lord often sponges off of Hengwen? Fox continued. Is Yuanjun going to say next that I cannot do what you can do just because I'm a demon and you are an immortal? He straightened his robe and stood up. I said before that I've never caused trouble for Qingjun. Since Yuanjun has reminded me of that, I'll go over next door to sleep. It's just that the fox walked to the wall, then looked back out of the corner of his eye. I may be a demon now, but I only have to pass 1,500 years of heavenly tribulations. I'll be able to ascend to immortality. Remains to be seen how things will turn out when we are in heaven. With a flick of his sleeve, he stepped through the wall to sleep in the next room. He was like, just you wait, buddy. I'm coming for him. When I dragged a chair over and sat, Hengwen spoke up softly. I've never seen you take the rules of the heavenly court so seriously. Did what happened to Tianshu and I'm make you see the light? More or less, I answered with a dry laugh and stood to walk over to the bed. By the way, it was fortunate you sent over the bowl of Lingxi decoction today. Thank you. Thank you. Just remember, you owe me a drink, Hengwen said lazily. Actually, I wanted to see what else you can do further down the line after repaying your so-called debt to Tianshu. Of course, I'll be doing whatever the Jade Emperor instructs me to, and whatever Mingge arranges, I replied. Speaking of which, there had been no sign of activity from old man Mingge these past few days. Strange. Hengwen moved inside the bed to make way for me, and I lay down on my side. Suddenly, I remembered something. All right, isn't Nanming still being held captive in that fox's cave? Since the fox isn't leaving, Nanming must be starving in there. Given that I've already saved Mu Ruoyan, should I commit another act of kindness? Get the fox to release him so that he can have his theatric reunion with Mu Ruoyan? Hengwen chuckled beside me. What are you laughing at? I asked. Nothing, Hengwen said. I just find your words interesting. When the day broke, I went to sit in Mu Ruoyan's room again to assuage the innkeeper's panic. A waiter found a chess set, and Hengwen played with me to relieve my boredom. I thought he was already playing chess. Was he doing it mentally? The fox crouched on the chair beside Hengwen while the waiters looked back and forth at it. In the thousands of years I had played chess with Hengwen, I'd never beaten him once. I suffered yet another depressing defeat today. The innkeeper, with great attentiveness, instructed the waiters to deliver lunch to the room, which included 5 dishes and 1 jar of wine, along with 1 pot of hot soup. The waiter placed the pot of soup on the table and lifted the lid. The instant a mist of piping hot steam escaped, Mu Ruoyan, on the bed across the veil of mist, moved. That was a long chapter. Don't worry, we've got 2 more. I just need a sip. But not gonna lie, that soup sounds delicious. Don't know what kind, but just the way it was described was like, might have soup tomorrow. Chapter 10. I'd been chewing on a strip of dried bean curd, and now I watched blankly as Mu Ruoyan propped himself up and looked dazedly over. The innkeeper, standing beside me personally pouring wine for Hengwen and me, froze in stupefaction. It had to be known that Mu Ruoyan had been lying bedridden for far too long, so when the innkeeper saw him sitting up by himself, it was like seeing Chang'e ascend the moon with his very own eyes. It worked him up till he trembled all over. After a while, he fell to his knees with a thud and cried, "Dao Sheng is truly a living immortal! Truly a living immortal!" I mean, he's not wrong, but... I stroked my beard and smiled, first at the innkeeper and then at Mu Ruoyan. When I opened my mouth, I realized I had yet to swallow the dried bean curd. I did so with composure, then smiled again. It's like, can't talk with my mouth full if I'm trying to be all suave and immortal-like. First, I said to the innkeeper, "It's nothing. No need to stand on ceremony." Then I affably asked Mu Ruoyan, "Young master, are you feeling a little better now?" Mu Ruoyan fixed his eyes on me, still looking a little dazed. "Young master," the innkeeper said, "you've been so sick these past few days that you fell unconscious. It was all thanks to Dao Sheng's divine medicine. How do you feel right now?" The dazed expression on Mu Ruoyan's face gradually receded. His mind must have cleared up. He straightened himself, his face awash with a weariness that was part self-derision. And then he schooled his expression and lifted the quilt. Jinluo Lingxi was potently effective, and to my surprise, he managed to stand on his first attempt. Taking over his outer robe from the waiter to drape over himself, he looked at me and said, "Please pardon me for my slovenly appearance. I heard it was all thanks to you for saving this humble one." I rose to my feet and raised a palm. "It's just some medicinal remedy this humble Taoist came across while roaming the world out there. As long as it helps to restore your health." "I am but a mere scholar," Mu Ruoyan said. "I have nothing to thank you with, so please accept my kowtow as an appreciation of my thanks." I was stunned when he bent his legs. To think Mu Ruoyan actually wanted to kneel to me? He who had no wish to live, kneeling down to the person who saved his life. If that's not a joke, I don't know what is. Despite this thought, I found that my legs had strode forward, and I reached out to stop Mu Ruoyan from completing his kowtow. The clatter of a wine cup being set on the table rang out. I released my hands and stepped back. Raising my palm again, I said, "Benefactor, this is too much of a kowtow for this humble Taoist to accept. Since the Dao Sheng isn't willing to accept my kowtow, then please accept my bow," Mu Ruoyan said, and bowed deeply. Left with no other choice, I could only raise my palm and return the gesture, bowing deeply at the waist. "In the future, when I am able, I will surely repay your kindness to me," Mu Ruoyan said. "I go by the humble surname of Yan, and my name is Zimu." "May I ask for your venerable name?" My, was Tianshu something else. Even in the mortal world, he had only just returned to consciousness, and here he was, instantly conjuring a fake name without batting an eyelid. I raised my palm in greeting again. "That's putting it a bit strongly, benefactor. I truly don't deserve this. This Dao Shang's humble name is Guang Yunzi. The others call me Taoist priest Guang Yun." After going on and on for a bit and mutually trading some more civilities, I said, "Your health is just starting to show improvements, so you still need to recuperate in quietude for a few more days. Don't catch another cold. It'd be better to rest in bed." "Thank you. Dao Sheng. Mu Ruoyan looked at the table. Please accept my apologies for disrupting your meal. I left dryly. We were clearly the only ones eating in the room, and yet he was still being so polite. Hengwen, sitting with his back to the bed all this time, turned to give him a sidelong smile. Don't worry about it, young master. We are the ones who've imposed on you. Mu Ruoyan instantly froze, as if he was at the summit of a frigid mountain and a basin of icy water had been poured over his head. His gaze was astonished, and his complexion ghastly pale. Hengwen leisurely rose to his feet. Looks like you still remember this humble one. The innkeeper looked left and right. So both young masters actually know each other. No wonder Dao Sheng went to such efforts to cure the young master. Turns out all of you are old acquaintances. You must have an affinity with one another indeed if you have met in my humble inn. This Taoist priest had to play an outsider, so I remained standing where I was. Mu Ruoyan looked at Hengwen and said in a hoarse voice, It is truly an affinity that has brought us together here, Hengwen said. Bouncing back to health after a severe illness is like getting a new lease on life. Since everything that occurred is in the past, let's just treat it as history of a former life. Forget about it all and live well in the future. Cupping his hands, he then said to the innkeeper, May I trouble you to move the dishes downstairs? The Dao Sheng and I shall have our meal in the hall. Let this young master rest. The innkeeper acknowledged the request, and the waiters nimbly tidied the plates away. The fox jumped off the chair and slipped into Hengwen's arms. Beside me, Hengwen whispered, Are you going to stay here or dine downstairs with me? Oh, that's a question. Mu Ruoyan's gaze folded over, his eyes glinting. Something about them looked very different from earlier. I felt a chill run down my spine. Raising a palm, I said, Benefactor, please have a good rest. This humble Taoist shall take my leave. I followed Hengwen out the door, and in the instant I turned, I saw Mu Ruoyan's cheerless eyes. The potency of the fox's Jin Luo Lingxi was extremely good. I was beginning to regret curing Tianshu. At dusk, when Hengwen and I were dining in the brightly lit downstairs hall, Mu Ruoyan came out and wandered around. He wore a long light blue gown, walking very quietly but steadily. His gown fluttered around his body. It was clear at a glance that he had not merely recovered from a severe illness, but had bounced back to his feet. Some strong herbs. Mu Ruoyan came down the stairs and headed for the hall. I stood, raised my palm, and asked after him. Meanwhile, Hengwen nodded his head. After Mu Ruoyan returned the greeting, he seated himself at a table beside ours. A waiter attended to him as he placed his order. Hengwen was not particularly talkative, so this immortal lord was a little glum. I sat opposite Hengwen, while Furball crouched on a chair next to him, looking the very picture of guileless as he ate the scrambled egg Hengwen fed him. Hengwen picked the chopped green onion out of the egg and used his chopsticks to move the pieces to the fox's plate, one at a time. The fox ate them, one mouthful at a time, and after it was done, it licked its whiskers. It looked up at Hengwen, wagging its tail. This immortal lord watched nonchalantly and ate my porridge with indifference. From time to time, I picked at the autumnal garland chrysanthemum leaves in my food. Odd, but okay. The waiters stood to the side and watched too. Young master, you're too amazing. This beast is so obedient before you. The way it eats is so interesting. I sneered to myself. It'd be even more interesting if it transformed into its human form and exhibited its pectoral muscles. Imagine a fully grown man wagging his tail with his head lowered. Do I detect a hint of jealousy? There were a few guests staying at the riverfront inn. Everyone in the hall was looking at the fox, as was Mu Ruoyan. At a table in the corner, one of several rotund men, merchants they looked like, said, "Do you two gentlemen have a miracle-working method to taming a wild creature into such an obedient animal?" Hengwen smiled mildly while I answered, "Oh, no." "Oh, no, you flatter us. It's actually just a small trick." The fox glanced very disrespectfully at this mortal lord out of the corner of its eye. I added, "It's actually easy to tame wildlife. All you need is a bowl of water blessed with the ashes of a talisman from this humble Taoist, and their wild nature will immediately be eradicated." The others from that particular table all addressed the rotund man who spoke as Squire Dong. That's unfortunate. Squire Dong eyed this mortal lord skeptically and said, "This humble one has traveled over most of the world, yet I never knew that the Taoist arts could still be used in such a way." I held my beard and said nothing. Not speaking at the appropriate time was the hallmark of a great master. Immediately, a waiter chimed in. Squire Dong might not know this, but this Guangyun Daoshang is indeed a great master. Look at the young master at this table. Guangyun Daoshang was the one who cured him using only a dose of medicine. He is truly a miracle physician, capable of bringing the dead back to life. Squire Dong and his fellow rotund men were instantly filled with deep reverence and repeatedly apologized for the lack of manners. Likewise, I repeatedly deflected their praises with humility. Then Squire Dong said, "Daoshang has such a brilliant air, like that of an immortal, so you must also be adept in the art of subduing evil and resurrecting the dead." Seeing as it was straying far off track, I could only say, "Occasionally, when there is unrest in a residence haunted by evil beings, this humble Taoist could muster my meager abilities to expel them. As for resurrecting the dead, I wouldn't dare to boast of it. Life, death, and fate naturally fall under the jurisdiction of the underworld. This humble Taoist is yet to break free of the six paths of existence to attain immortality. So how could I dare to talk big about life and death?" Squire Dong, admiring this immortal lord's humility, sighed in appreciation. Hengwen idly pointed around the plate with the tip of his chopsticks. He fed the entire plate of egg to the fox, and all that was left were the black fungus mushrooms, chopped green onions, and ginger that he had picked out earlier. As I reached out my chopsticks towards the black fungus mushrooms, I heard Mu Ruoyan say, "As they say, karmic affinity begins at birth and perishes at death. But then, where do those souls that come to collect their debts and those spirits with fury and resentment come from? Or is that just a rumor?" Picked up the black fungus mushrooms to put into my bowl of porridge, considering how to respond when Hengwen suddenly chimed in. "It's really hard to say when it comes to such matters. Whether it's a rumor or not remains to be seen. Living in this world can be likened to a person staying in a house. When the house is not livable anymore, that's when death and the extinction of affinity are imminent. But even if your affinity with this house is ended, you might still have some affinity with another house." Pointed the chopsticks at me. For instance, this Dao Sheng said he wouldn't come back from the dead, but perhaps he might swap over to another house to live in. Hengwen, are you trying to tear down my facade and sabotage me? All at once, Mu Ruoyan's eyes latched onto this immortal lord. I let out a dry laugh. Young Master Zhao's joke is so witty, this humble Taoist is at a loss as to how to react. Hengwen set down his chopsticks, and the fox sprang onto his lap and yawned. Then Hengwen excused himself and swaggered up the stairs with the fox in his arms. Yeah, that was a little off the nose for Hengwen. Like, I don't think he really liked that our buddy cured Tianshu. Thus, I also returned to my room. In the hallway, I hesitated whether to return to my room or head to Hengwen's. After a moment of pondering, I went to Hengwen's room and pushed the door open. Hengwen was seated at the table drinking tea. I joined him. Hengwen lifted the teapot, and I picked up a cup and held it before the spout. You want to save even this bit of energy? Hengwen quipped. Pour a cup for me, and I will refill the remaining tea for you, I said with a smile. Hengwen scoffed and filled the teacup in my hand to the brim. Glanced at the fox lying on the bed. Furball, I have a matter to discuss with you. Lead the way tonight. Qingjun and I will make a trip to your cave and release the Shan person whom you've locked up. The fox jumped to the ground, transformed into its human form, and stood leaning against the bedpost with a frown on its face. The wound Sheng Ling had inflicted on his arm was still there. The fox must still be feeling indignant, and his face turned livid on hearing that I was telling him to let his prisoner go. Qingjun and I descended to the mortal world for official business on orders, I explained. And the person you've locked up just so happens to be a key player. Truth be told, this immortal lord has some feud with this person. If not for heaven's decree holding me back, this immortal lord would even be willing to build a fire to roast him for supper, if you so wanted. The fox folded his arms, reticent until Hengwen said, Song Yao Yuanju is telling you the truth. Although this is unfair to you, we still hope you can help us. The fox immediately answered meekly, Since Qingjun wishes to release him, I'll let him go tonight. He looked like he was willing to lay down his life for him. That's more sense. And so, in the middle of the night, the fox and I set off for its lair. Hengwen lifted my real form out and said he would not be going since his present appearance was similar to his real looks, and he feared that it would complicate matters if Shan Shengling were to find out. On hearing that Hengwen was not going, the fox pulled a glum face. He led this immortal lord to his mountain stronghold, saying nothing the entire time. The night was dark and the wind swift. There happened to be a tailwind when we set off, so riding the wind and the clouds took us only a little more than a quarter of an hour to arrive at the fox's mountain home. The fox and I landed halfway up the mountain, and it was lush with tall tree shadows and thick, long grass. I asked the fox for the name of this mountain, and the fox answered me in a frosty tone. Mount Xuanqing. Xuan as in Xuan Li, Qing as in Hengwen Qingjun. The mortal lord cringed for a moment. Did he just make a pairing name into a mountain? Oh my goodness. He's down bad. What was this mountain called before you gave it this name? Yet, even this mortal lord cringed for a moment. Mount Ku Tang, the fox answered resentfully. After walking a few steps with his head lowered, he asked, How did you know I changed the name? I did not answer. Jeez. When this immortal lord was out of love and reciting poems in the mortal world, you were still out there somewhere stealing some household chickens. Oh my gosh, he did it too. He's like, oh god, that's cringe. And then he was like, my forgotten black past. No! The fox's cave entrance was concealed within the vine leaves, climbing up all over the mountain cliff, along a long, narrow stone path that meandered its way inside. This was a fox that knew how to live it up. He had dug a channel of water across the road ahead, with a stone bridge above it. After crossing the bridge, he rounded the edge of a stone screen. The fox raised his sleeve and flicked forth a flame that lit up the torches on the four walls, revealing another scenic abode. A fairly spacious stone cave that had been decorated to resemble a furnished hall. There were fruits and vegetables, wine and snacks displayed on the stone table, and the stone chairs were padded with satin and brocade curtains. To the right, there was even a screen with a colored glaze inlaid with cowries. I was just about to praise the fox's stone lair, but the fox, standing in the center of the hall, frowned and muttered, "Something's amiss." Then he strode to the other side of the screen. The mortal lord followed suit. There was another stone path with countless forks behind the screen. The fox moved swiftly ahead, and I was close behind. After turning several bends, he opened a stone door and entered yet another cave. The fox raised his hand to light up a torch. There was only a bare pillar in the cave, and broken pieces of chain lay scattered at the foot of the pillar. From the looks of it, the fox had locked Shan Shangling up here. I looked at the scattered chains with a frown. Who would have known that Shan Shangling was brave and strong enough to break free and flee? The fox ground his teeth and hissed something hatefully before dashing from the cave. He turned 70 or 80 bends along the stone path before opening yet another stone door. A gust of wind from outside blew its way in. I raised my head, and to my surprise, I was able to see the dark sky. This place was a fissure in the mountain, which the fox had made into an innermost courtyard. A small black figure sprang from the shadows and leapt straight towards us. A whimper of a sob followed as the figure buried itself into the fox's arms and squirmed for a bit. Then it transformed into a young, innocent boy who wrapped his arms around the fox and bawled, "Oh, great king, you're finally back!" A sob. "Someone powerful came and rescued the guy locked up in the cave. A Hung Qingjun, Hua, Xia, Oki, and the others. Put them all in a cage." Sobs. I managed to hide myself, though it wasn't easy. I was so afraid. Sobs. Oh, great king. Also, like it was a commune. The boy burrowed his head into the fox's arms, crying and smearing his tears and snot as he recounted what happened. When he finally stopped, the fox led both of us back to the stone hall. The boy shrank into a chair, still sobbing and sniffling, while sneaking glances at this immortal lord. He had a pair of lush green eyes, and the two pointed ears at the top of his head still had grayish-brown stripes. So it seemed that this child had originally been a mountain cat spirit. The little mountain cat spirit was unclear in his speech, speaking incoherently. He stammered for a long time before he managed to give a rough account of what had happened. Supposedly, someone with a horsetail whisk had barged into the cave this morning, abducted Shan Shengling, and captured a dozen or so of the demons and spirits residing here. There were pretty vixens and other minor demons whose cultivation was not high enough. The mountain cat's cultivation was the shallowest, and his demonic aura was the weakest. It was only by burrowing into a crevice in a corner that he got to preserve his little life. The fox's expression was livid and his gaze harsh. This immortal lord knew that he and Shan Shangling were now sworn enemies. The little mountain cat still couldn't clearly describe the appearance of the guest with the horsetail whisk who had saved them, saved Shang Shengling. After some back and forth, all he said was that he had no beard, looked like a Taoist priest, and wore blue clothes. Then he aggrievedly extended his two injured front paws to show the fox. This immortal lord listened and looked, but I had to say, since the man in the cave is already gone, my matter here is considered done. It's late now, and I have to return to the inn. I looked at the fox and the little mountain cat. What are both of your plans? The fox said nothing. The little mountain cat huddled up and shrank back in the chair. The fox's tiny mountain stronghold of demons and spirits was now empty, and he looked rather miserable as he sat there with his head hanging. There was no knowing if the powerful guest with the horsetail whisk had come barging or would come barging back in. The fox and this little mountain cat were both in peril. This immortal lord was actually an easy, soft-hearted person. Seeing such a sight now, my heart could not help but soften a tiny bit. Just this tiny bit, and by the time I returned to Hengwen's room, I had behind me a fox and a gray-striped mountain cat. The fox jumped onto Hengwen's lap, let out a whimper, coiled itself, and lay down, downcast. Hengwen stroked the top of the fox's head. The fox looked up and licked Hengwen's hand. The little mountain cat leaped onto the corner of the quilt at the end of the bed and lay there, smacking its lips and licking its injured front paws. I truly regretted this tiny softening of my heart. I can't resist the sadness of these fluffy animals. All right, we're on to our last chapter of the night, chapter 11. Mu Ruoyan and Shan Shengling would meet on an afternoon when the wind and waves raged and the rain poured in torrents. I am stumbling and I am sorry about that. By the next day, I had brought the fox and the mountain cat cub to settle down in the inn. Hengwen and I happened to be in the hall downstairs having our lunch when someone rapped hard on the inn's tightly shut doors. The waiter opened the doors a crack, and the gale blew the rainwater into the inn, sending splatters of froth onto the stir-fried vegetarian dish before me. Oh, that's unfortunate. A drenched figure wearing a bamboo hat strode across the threshold just as a sudden clap of thunder detonated in the sky. This figure with the bamboo hat took off that bamboo hat, raising the fox's hackles. This sharp-eyed immortal lord moved swiftly to hold down the fox. Shan Shengling stood tall and proud in the hall and surveyed his surroundings with his bright eyes. His eyes fell upon this table and landed on Hengwen. All at once his eyes narrowed and his eyebrows twitched almost imperceptibly. His expression, however, did not change in the slightest, never once betraying his feelings. Hengwen politely flashed him a half-smile. Mingge Xingjun was indeed something. After returning Hengwen's smile in kind, his electric gaze immediately swept over to this immortal lord's face. This immortal lord initially meant to raise a palm in greeting, but both of my hands were occupied with the struggling fox, so I could only give a nod. Shan Shengling's gaze passed nonchalantly over the fox. Just then, the innkeeper rushed over, bowing at the waist. "Master Chen, you're finally back. We will prepare hot water and a change of clothes for you right away. Would you like a jar of wine first to warm yourself up?" This innkeeper is really so clueless, currying favor with bathwater and warming wine, I thought. Other than that frail scholar who's his lover in the room up there, is there room for anything else in his heart right now? Yet of all things you could have brought up, you just had to admit him. As expected, Shan Shengling spoke. How has that young Master Yan upstairs been these past few days? It was then that the innkeeper suddenly saw the light. As he answered, "Good, good," he had the waiter lead the way. He then apologized for the unsatisfactory service, saying they had been a poor host to that other young master, so would Master Chen please forgive them. Shan Shengling took big strides up the stairs. He had only just reached the midway mark when he braked to a stop and looked straight ahead. Mu Ruoyan stood at the end of those stairs, gripping the railing tightly with one hand. Two pairs of eyes locked as they gazed at each other. Such a sight was immeasurably touching and incredibly mushy. So mushy that even the fox could not stand it. He twitched beneath my hands and went still. After trading gazes in silence for a moment, Shan Xingling asked Muburu Yan, "Are you feeling better these days?" "Much better now," Muburu Yan answered. Oh god, that is so cheesy. Shan Shengling uttered an "oh," strode up the stairs, and returned to the room with Mu Ruoyan. God, that's so cheesy. "I'm better now that you're here." The rest of their conversation was inaudible. I returned to the room after our meals, and as soon as the door was bolted, the little mountain cat lunged over. Great King, I saw the man whom you locked up in the cave. That man, he..." The fox shifted into his human form, voice icy. "I've already seen him." His fists were clenched tight and his eyes had a murderous gleam in them. The enmity brought on by the capture of the demons and spirits from his cave ran as deep as the sea. He must be itching to spring over next door and flay Shan Shengling alive. This immortal lord had no choice but to advise Furball to keep calm. Shan Shengling had returned alone to the inn, and we still had no idea who that person was that had captured an entire cave of demons alive. Nanming had quite a few good friends in the heavenly court. Could they possibly dare to defy the Jade Emperor's decree to help Nanming down here in the mortal world? So I said, "We still don't know where your lair of demons is locked up. If you act without careful consideration and hurt Nanming, your little demons might very well end up losing their lives. Let's not act rashly for the time being." Furball clenched his fists so hard that they cracked. He stood still by the table. I opened the door and shouted for a plate of fried crucian carp, lunch for the mountain lion. Well, mountain cat. The waiter clicked his tongue and marveled. "Dao Sheng, you sure have a good appetite. You just had your lunch and now you want a snack?" I laughed. "Just something to aid digestion. In the afternoon, Shan Shengling came knocking on this immortal lord's door. He had already taken a bath and changed into a set of dry, fresh clothes. His cheeks were slightly sunken, no surprise, given his days of captivity in the fox's cave. Still, he was full of spirit and energy. On entering the room, he cupped his hands and said, "Dao Sheng, I have already heard of how you've miraculously saved Zimu from death. Yan Zimu is this humble one's sworn brother, and so I've come to offer my thanks." His gaze, that was as cutting as blades, coolly sized up this immortal lord. With both hands, he held out a red paper envelope. "This is but a modest token of gratitude. Please do not turn it down, Dao Shan." I raised a palm and said, Benefactor, you're too polite. It was merely some herbal prescription. As a Taoist, this humble one ought not to accept money from the material world. But seeing as you're sincere, this humble Taoist shall regard it as your donation to the art of Taoism and accept it for the time being. I did not stand on ceremony at all as I accepted it and squeezed it in my hand. It was heavy, perhaps a gold bar. It seems to me that Dao Shang and that young master next door are fellow travelers, Shan Shengling asked. I smoothly made up a story. That's right. The young master is very fond of the art of Taoism. He wishes to find a quiet spot to cultivate, so he travels with this humble Taoist. We often study the art of elixirs together. So the Taoist master is skilled in the art of concocting elixir pills, Shan Shengling said. Not exactly, I said. Actually, this humble Taoist is more adept in divining the future and reading feng shui. The middle of your forehead is full, and your bone structure is refined. It's the face of a comfortable and distinguished station in life, and one with such a face is blessed with ancestral blessings and a peaceful, carefree life. Benefactor, would you like this humble Taoist to divine a fortune for you and read your luck in recent days? Shan Shengling retracted his gaze. This humble one is a little tired today. Perhaps on another date. He turned to leave. I took a large, dramatic stride forward. Benefactor, do you really not want me to tell your fortune? This humble Taoist divination art was personally imparted by Tai Shang Lao Jun himself in a dream. One telling costs only 10 coins. Since this humble Taoist is acquainted with your sworn brother, then just 8 coins will do. Can additionally read a character to tell your fortune. What do you think? Shan Shengling answered that he would surely have his fortune read another day and strode away. Behind me, a voice said, I'll fork out 20 coins. May I ask of Dao Shang to divine my fortune? I turned. Hengwen was all grins as he sat by the table. I dragged over a chair to sit beside him and picked up the teapot to pour his cup to the brim. Do you want King Wen's divination with copper coins or Gui Guozi's divination with 8 characters? Is it not Song Yao Yuanju's divination? Hengwen asked. Finally, I could not refrain from laughing. You sure are a carefree one. Instead of watching Furball in the room, you come and watch the show here. Those few words of yours had quite the impact on him. I don't think he will act rashly, Hengwen said. The entire lair of demons has been taken captive. Both of them look so pitiful, I left them in the other room to calm down. Shan Shengling just so happened to come knocking, and I couldn't resist the urge to come and watch. He drank a mouthful of tea. You act as a Taoist priest, quite convincingly. You are looking more and more like a cultivator. Of course, I said smugly. I had my fortune told all day long when I was in the mortal world, having them read from countless fortune-telling stalls, so much that I can do better than those who had just joined the trade. If I were to violate the rules of heaven someday and get banished back to the mortal world, I'd really go and be a fortune-teller. Business is guaranteed to be good. Holding his cup, Hengwen shook his head. Or like you've gotten addicted to playing a Taoist priest. I've heard that all mortals love fortune-telling, like how you used to have your fortune told all the time back then. What did you ask about? Didn't I tell you before? I said. When I was 7 years old, my father invited some master from the mountain to divine my fortune. The master said I had great luck and would get to enjoy a very rare blessing, but that I was doomed to a fate of eternal solitude. I refused to believe this, so I went all over to have my fortune told. And yet, there was nothing to be said at all when it came to my marriage. Bringing this up made me sigh again. So, mortal lord had been 7 years of age and already cognizant of many things. I still remembered Steward Shu's daughter, Feng Niang, a little maiden about 12 or 13 years old at that time. I'd liked her very much. I was just planning to tell my father that I was going to marry her as my wife when I grew up, when that old Taoist priest dealt me a blow so hard I saw stars. But the Taoist priest jinx of a month did indeed prove accurate, and Feng Niang's married the son of a merchant at 14. Indignant, I had run to ask her why she forgot all those affections I had showed on her, osmanthus cakes, puff pastries, and walnut cookies. Feng Niang petted the top of my head and said, "Young master, you are still ignorant of the ways of the world. Beside, how could a person like me dream of climbing the social ladder by associating with you?" I had watched helplessly as Feng Niang got into the red sedan and was carried away with great fanfare. Ah, young love. My father had also arranged a betrothal for me. She was the precious daughter of a minister. The matchmaker said she was a ravishing beauty, and her 8 characters and almanac readings were extremely compatible with mine. She and I were a match made in heaven. But in the end, she fell in love with the 3rd prince's heir, and one moonless, windy night, the both of them brazenly eloped. I got engaged again, this time to the daughter of the emperor's brother-in-law, and she eloped with her older cousin. Another engagement to the commandery princess of a commandery prince. The emperor took a fancy to her and acquired her for his harem. Dude, you have really bad relationship luck. Oh my goodness. To make it up to me, the emperor bestowed upon me the hand of his younger sister, the 8th princess. She had an illicit affair with a young vice minister and even got pregnant with his child. I had loitered around the pleasure quarters and fell in love at first sight with the top courtesan. I poured all my love and sincerity into it, but how did it turn out? She still ended up becoming lovers with a poor scholar. It was completely by a fluke that I became an immortal, and indeed got to enjoy a blessing that the common people would never get to experience. Every prediction of the old Taoist had proven itself to be true. So one could not help but believe in the thing called fate. Hengwen yawned. All right, I get it. I get how miserable and forlorn you are. I've been listening to you for so many thousands of years, my ears have become calloused. Can't you change your wording? You are always harping on and on about how you are doomed to a fate of eternal solitude. Are you not happy being an immortal in heaven? I am, I answered. But you were born an immortal, so you don't know the power of this thing called love. Once you have it, a taste of it, you'll never forget it. Why else would Tianshu and Nanming next door be reduced to such a state today instead of being their exalted lordships? Oh, that makes sense, Hengwen said as he turned the teacup. Interesting. How interesting. If the Jade Emperor were to hear you, he would surely take it as you have still not rid yourself of your mortal roots and expel you back to the mortal world. But I was really regretting babbling on so much. I grabbed Hengwen's sleeve and said, "Whether the Jade Emperor hears me or not is of secondary importance. It's merely just spouting nonsense. Don't you think of finding someone to try it with just because you find it interesting? Oh, don't you think of finding someone to try it with just because you find it interesting?" That was more him telling him, and I read it like a question. Sorry. Hengwen patted me on my shoulder and reassured me with a smile. I won't find someone else to try it with. Don't worry. That's because he's probably going to try it with you. He kind of has been. Thanks for noticing. Not. It was getting dark. When we went downstairs for our meals, I casually asked about Mu Ruoyan and Shan Shengling. The waiter replied that they had already eaten and gone back to their respective rooms. The fox and mountain cat were still stricken over their fellow demons, so we simply left them in Hengwen's room to grieve, while Hengwen and I moved to my room. Pondered it over in my mind, but I still could not figure out who had rescued Nanming. Then it occurred to me. Nanming would surely tell Tianshu the whole story now that he had gone and returned. It was likely he would not keep Tianshu in the dark about these matters. I conferred with Hengwen about spying in Nanming's room. Shan Qingling's room was at the end of the corridor. Tianshu's room was beside it, and this immortal lord's room was right next to Tianshu's. Hengwen lifted my real form out. Concealed in midair, we headed for our destination, but we never expected to take the long way round to Nanming's room, only to find it empty. He must be in Tianshu's room. So Hengwen and I entered Tianshu's room. And what a sight greeted us. Mu Ruoyan and Shan Shengling were entwined together, about to stir up a storm under the sheets. I'm going to read ahead a little bit, because I think they're about to describe what's happening. I think it's okay. Mu Ruoyan's back was pressed up against the bedpost. All that remained on his body was a thin robe partially opened at the bosom. His eyes were partially shut, and he was gasping slightly. Meanwhile, Shan Shengling gnawed on Mu Ruoyan's neck, even as one of his hands slowly removed the latter's robe, and his other hand wandered down. Amitabha, this immortal lord has really been an immortal far too long. To think I had forgotten about the most inopportune time to come calling. Huh. They're so enthusiastic with their dual cultivation, aren't they? Hengwen remarked. I hurriedly dragged Hengwen Qingjun away and crashed back into our room. What a sin! What a sin! Mortals who see this will get styes in their eyes for sure. This lord here is an immortal, Hengwen said. Besides, you and I entered purely by coincidence, and we only had just the one look. I sat down silently in front of the bed. Hengwen waved his worn folding fan. There's nothing to feel uncomfortable about. Don't tell me you never did it as a mortal. I let out a dry cough. I have, but it was all with women, which is slightly different from this sort of cultivating. Yeah, Hengwen concurred. I've seen illustrations in the books. They are indeed a little different. Shocked, I jumped to my feet. In the books? What books? Why would you be looking at them? Good Lord. If the Jade Emperor were to discover that Hengwen Qingjun had returned with his mind chock full of obscene stuff after this one trip to the mortal realm, he would surely send a flash of lightning right onto my head and obliterate me to ashes. Why are you so startled? Hengwen said. Since I'm in charge of the instruction of literary ethics in the world, I naturally have to look at all kinds of books. Back then, when I was at Dongjun's manor, I had nothing to do, so I went to the marketplace to buy a few illustration books and flipped through them, wanting to see how dual cultivation was done. He felt around his sleeves and fished out a tiny object in his palm. In an instant, the object enlarged into a stack of books with ink blue covers. He lifted them and patted each before setting them on the table. I reached out for one of the books to flip through and saw stars. It was erotica. What's more, it was homoerotica of men thick in the act. He's got hardcore. He just does hardcore porn up his sleeve. He's like, what you freaking out about? It's not like I haven't seen it. Oh my gosh. It's hilarious. Back when I was immortal, I'd seen my fair share of erotica. My closest friends and I often commented on the books and appreciated them together. We even traded our rare editions. However, enticing Hengwen Qingjun to look at erotica was a crime, was no joking matter in the heavenly court. I was still comfortable in my role as an immortal, and I had no wish to be escorted up to the immortal execution terrace to be struck by lightning. I broke out in a cold sweat looking at the books. It was only after looking that I realized that dual cultivation was indeed an art that calls for careful study, Hengwen remarked in a particularly relaxed manner. Pity the illustrations weren't well drawn and were a little of a turn-off. That's because you bought the common ones on the market, I couldn't help but say. Those kinds are all crudely drawn. There's nothing novel about them. The real, rare editions cannot be bought from the marketplace bookshops. You have to go through special channels to get your hands on them. The illustrations in those are what I'd call fascinating. Oh, Penguin said with great zest. I felt like smacking this damn mouth of mine. He was too shocked and he was like, dude, you gotta know where the good shit is. Like, you can't just get it at the market. Come on. He's like, damn it. Nanming and Tianshu, having not seen each other for a long time, were thick in the throes of passion, and but by the time Hengwen and I blew out the lamps to go to bed, the sounds of activity next door was reverberating over in bursts. The creaking bed board. Ruoyan's intermittent moans, the sound of which made this immortal lord feel restless of mind and unsettled of heart. Fortunately, Guang Yunzi's body was laying ramrod straight on the ground, putting the brake to many a number of sinful desires. Staring at Guang Yunzi, I calmed my nerves and breathing. Beside me, Hengwen asked, "What are you doing, craning your neck and poking your head out from bed?" "Lust is in the air," I said, "and Hengwen Qingjun lies beside me. I fear my immortal roots will waver and I will commit a great sin. So I'm looking at Guang Yunzi to still my mind." Hengwen chuckled. The sight of the old man lying on the ground does indeed have the calming effect. Keep on looking, then. I heard him roll over and moved no further. He'd probably fallen asleep. Looking at Guang Yunzi gradually exhausted me, and I, too, fell asleep. And then I had a dream. I rarely dreamed after I had become immortal, and this dream was exceptionally different. In my days, I stood amidst a grove of peach blossom trees. The blooming brilliance of the peach blossom surpassed that of heaven's rosy clouds. In the inner reaches of the mist, an indistinct figure stood, and as I approached, he turned his head back, stupefying me. What an immortal dreamed was his true desire. I understood I was in a dream right now, and when I saw him, I understood that this dream was my one true desire. I could smother this want, but I could not deceive myself. What I was unsure of was when I started to even have this kind of desire. Perhaps it all began several thousand years ago when I saw him from afar in that heavenly palace of heaven. Distinguished and refined, he was so near before my eyes, yet so far beyond my reach. And yet, I could not help but want to get closer. For several thousands of years, I had lived a carefree life filled with gratitude towards heaven. I had originally been doomed to a fate of eternal solitude, unable to seek what I so willfully sought. But I got to see him often, and for that, I was content. In any case, I was an immortal who had become one by a fluke, and I had excuses even if I was unable to break clean of my moral roots. It was just like the time before my ascension, when I clearly knew that I could not have the moon in my hands, and yet there were times I really wanted to pluck it from the sky. And the dream, at this moment, was a reflection of my filthy heart. Since this was a dream of my true desire, I could let myself go, to my heart's content. I hugged the person before me and kissed him. What were dreams for? They were for kissing lips I did not dare to kiss, removing clothes I did not dare to remove, doing deeds I could never do as an immortal. It was all worth it, I thought, the very instant I lifted his waist. Even if the Jade Emperor were to reduce me to ashes with a strike of lightning, it was all worth it. Even though this was only a dream, I had no regrets. Before I woke, I could remember feeling immensely completed. As I embraced him in my arms under the rosy clouds, like peach blossoms, I told him I had, in truth, liked him for several thousand years, that I had been thinking of him for several thousand years. As he leaned against my shoulder, he softly said, I too have been thinking of you for several thousand years. And then I woke up. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw the canopy of the bed. I turned my head to the left and saw the empty quilt and pillow, then turned my head to the right and saw Guang Yuanju lying on the ground. Hengwen, rested and refreshed, was waiting in his room to have breakfast with me. Furball was crouched gloomily on the stool, while the mountain cat was lying sorrowfully by the bed. What sweet dream did you have last night? Hengwen said. When I left, you were grinning like a fool, and you wore an obscene expression. I let out 2 dry laughs. I dreamed that the Jade Emperor gave me a promotion. So, we finally have a little bit of progress with our seemingly oblivious, maybe purposefully oblivious main character, our Guang Yuan, who kind of, at least internally, is finally admitting to himself he may like somebody, which I'm pretty sure is our Hengwen. But we will have to wait until Thursday to see where this goes. So I hope you guys enjoyed, but if you didn't know, that's the end of chapter 11, which that's how much we're going to be doing tonight. But I'm really liking this one. Like, I didn't really have any expectations for this going into it, but I am actually really enjoying this. I like the characters a lot. There's that edge of humor that this author really seems to have with his writing. And he manages first person really well, which is so hard to do. So I really respect that about these books that he's written. But I'm excited to see where this goes. Like, we had kind of that little oops, accidental voyeur moment, which is hilarious. And some feelings growth. So I'm excited about that. I think we're pretty obvious about who it is, but this author does like surprising us. So I could be wrong. I don't think I am in this instance. But yeah, feel free to leave a comment or just say hey or make predictions, because like we're like a little under halfway through, so there's still a decent amount to go. Yeah, so like 1/3 maybe through, but yeah, so it's definitely got a bit more to go. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me tonight, both the people who are here live as well as anyone who is watching this later. Makes me really happy that you join in, and I hope you're really enjoying these series, because I know I am. And I just enjoy doing it, so I'm going to keep doing it. Probably next week I'll actually post up about what book we want next, because we still have 4 sessions before we finish this book, but I just want to see like where interest lies. So yeah, until Thursday at 8 CST. I hope you have a wonderful time. 4th of July is coming up, so for those of you in the US of A, we're still doing Thursday the 3rd, but yeah, to have a wonderful 4th of July if you don't tune in or if you see this later. Good night. See you then.